For number 1, the first thing that we have to do is figure out the values in the table for y. So in order to do that, we take our equation y equals 4x minus 3, and then we plug in each of these x values here into that equation for x. So the first one is going to be 4 times negative 3 minus 3. So that's negative 12 minus 3, and that's negative 15. And you continue that throughout the whole table. So we're going to do 4 times negative 2 minus 3. So that's negative 8 minus 3, and that's negative 11. Continue, 4 times negative 1 minus 3. So that's negative 4 minus 3, which is negative 7. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the table with the values that you should have gotten. Once you know all the values in the table, then we are ready to determine what scale we should use. So I'm going to just count by ones, since most of these numbers are within 10 of the 0. The other thing I have to remember is to label the axes with x and y. So remember, the horizontal axis is x and the vertical axis is y. And now I'm ready to plot the points. So negative 3, negative 15 is too far off my grid. I can't really see that. So I'm going to try to plot negative 2, negative 11. So you can see my red point is at negative 2, negative 11. Now I'm going to do negative 1, negative 7, and 0, negative 3, and 1, 1, and 2, 5. Oops, that was a little off. That's better. And now 3, 9. So once I have my points there, I have to remember that I need to connect the points with a line and put arrows at the end. And that is the final answer for number 1. For number 2, the equation is y equals x squared plus 2. So remember, this is very important. When you plug a negative number in for x and you square it, you need parentheses around it. So it's going to look like parentheses, negative 3, close parentheses, squared, plus 2. So that would be 9 plus 2, which is 11. The next one is going to be negative 2 squared plus 2. So negative 2 squared is 4, plus 2 is 6. And you would continue that throughout the whole table. So I'm going to put the answers that I got for y into the table now. So if you notice in this table, the values are repeating, which indicates that it will probably be one of the parabolas we've seen in the past. If you look at the numbers, they're all pretty close to 10, or within 10, so I'm going to use a scale of 1 again. So I have set up my scale, and now I have to make sure to remember to label my axes. So again, the horizontal axis is x, and the vertical axis is y. And now I'm ready to plot the points. So negative 3, 11 is going to be just off my grid, so I'm going to guess it's right about there. Negative 2, 6 is right here. Negative 1, 3. 0, 2. And then 1, 3 goes back up. 2, 6. And then 3, 11 is just off my grid again. So as you can see, it forms that U shape that we've seen in the past. And that is the answer to number 2. Make sure you put your arrows there. And we're going to move on to number 3. So number 3 was definitely the most difficult for students. So what I've done is I've showed all the work, every single step over here to the left with all of this work right here. So let me explain what I have. So the equation was negative x squared plus 5. So I have negative, then my x, and this means squared. It's just the way I can type it with a keyboard. So that's negative x squared plus 5. So we have to square negative 3, we get 9. We take the opposite of it because that's what that negative is there for. So the opposite of 9 plus 5, and that gives me negative 4. The opposite of negative 2 squared ends up being negative 4 plus 5 equals 1. The opposite of negative 1 squared is negative 1 plus 5 is 4, and so on. The opposite of 0 squared is just 0, plus 5 is 5, and you can go ahead and see the rest. So these are the numbers that go in my table over here. So now all of these numbers are relatively small, so I'm going to use a scale of 1 again. And now I am ready to plot my points. So negative 3, negative 4 is right here. And then negative 2, 1 is here. Negative 1, 4 is right there. 0, 5, 1, 4, 2, 1, and finally 3, negative 4. So as you can see, we do not have a line here. This is another parabola. It just is upside down. So that's what the graph looks like when you connect the dots. And I need to come back here and label my axes X and Y because I forgot to do that earlier tonight. And we're ready for number 4. With number 4, we are going to plug our x's here in for the x in the equation, which means we need to multiply negative 2 times whatever x is, and then add 3. So the first one, I'm going to do negative 2 times negative 3, and then I'm going to add 3 to that. So a negative times a negative is a positive. That gives me a positive 6 plus 3 is 9. I continue on in my table. Negative 2 times negative 2 plus 3. So that gives me a positive 4 plus 3 is 7. And I'll do one more. Negative 1 times negative 2. That's a positive 2. Plus 3 is 5. So I'm going to go ahead and have you make sure you got all of your y's correct by putting those values into the table. So all of those values are within 10 from 0. So again, I'm just going to choose a scale of 1s. So now you can see I've set up my scale and I have already labeled my axes since I forgot to do that in the last one at the beginning. And now I am going to plot all these points. So negative 3, 9 is up here. Negative 2, 7 is right there. Negative 1, 5 is right there. 0, 3, 1, 1, 2, negative 1, and 3, negative 3 is right there. And the last thing I have to do is connect the points and draw my arrows. And that is what your graph for number 4 should look like. We are going to watch a separate video for the back side of this worksheet.